All right, welcome back to the Black Male Archives. I'm your host, Rodney Freeman, and I have with me Dr. Webb, Dr. Thurman E. Webb. Sir, how you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, sir. Thank you for being on the Black Male Archives podcast. And we're talking with you about Rebrand the Black Man. And what we have is Rebrand the Black Man is committed to changing the way the global community views and evaluates the black male. So we're just want to talk to you, kind of get your input, how you got it started, and share with your experiences and your background. We also know that you work for Tennessee State
Yeah.
as an assistant professor in psychology in the College of Education. So kind of get pick your brain about the psyche of black males. So can you tell the
Yeah.
listeners where you're from and
Yeah, I'm originally from Nashville, Tennessee. I started here. I haven't always lived here, but I've done a lot of work here. I grew up here, and I came back and started my track in the field of psychology. I started the second part of my academic career here at Tennessee State University. And now I serve as the associate professor of psychology and the professional school counseling program coordinator, as well as core faculty. And I'm just excited to be back here where one of my first mentors or advisors, Dr. Peter Millett, he was the person to introduce me into psychology in my undergrad years when I had no direction. And now I actually occupy the exact office that I first encountered Dr. Peter Millett. So it's kind of like a 360 moment for me, even being here at the university. So I'm excited about that. But yeah, so in conjunction with all of that and my experience around mental health and what it means to be a black man and the lived nuances of our experience, we launched Rebrand the Black Man. And Rebrand the Black Man as a nonprofit was launched in 2014. The initial movement started literally on Instagram, and it was on the heels of the murder of Tamir Rice.
um,
And that really, that particular one, all of them were tragic. All of them impacted me significantly. But it was
mhm,
something about the young black boy who was simply playing guns, which I had done many times as a youth, cowboys and Indians or whatever. And to see the video of the officer who literally killed him before the car even came to a complete stop.
mm,
Um, it did something to me, and it said there had to be a controlling image in the officer's head that informed his actions,
yeah,
and that started my whole quest to like, okay, so what other images are out there that mainstream America can partake in? And when
yeah,
I went on that search, simply typing black males in Google, which I think you had referred to,
yep,
you and I were
yep,
doing something
yep,
before, and I was like, oh my goodness, I didn't see it. And
hmm,
so, true to form, I said, you know what? Well, we're going to create a platform that shows black males and the collage that we are a part of. We are not monolithic. And
hmm,
so, our whole quest was to change the narrative about black men here in America, to highlight the things that we have done, that we are doing, and that we will do to make this place a better place, because we know that without black males' input on a lot of society, we would be significantly behind. So that's how Rebrand the Black Man started. And then when it was downloaded into me from my higher power, one of the things that I got was it was not for me to hoard.
mm,
And so it was for me to open the door to allow anybody to put their hand on it as long as they were trying to push it forward. And so
mhm,
that's what we've done. And we've created a network of black men of all types who are simply just trying to push the narrative forward about the great things we can do and how we have consistently mentored youth and really all aspects of society into a greater space. So we're just really trying to highlight that.
man, this is so awesome, and actually, this is really like so timely because before we got on here, I was just telling you a little bit that I was starting to do research on like, black male identity and then the type of careers they go into, and I mean, and you just kind of hit the nail on the head basically by saying like being able to see themselves. How much of it is in your studies and in your research? us black males being able to see ourselves in something, or being able to see other black men in certain careers will lead us then to going into those careers. Have you found that? Has that come out in some of your research that you have, being
Yeah,
able to see positive images? What does it say? What are you seeing?
absolutely. As a professor and being involved in research, I've been a part of a couple of grants that are looking at how we um, access black males, especially in the STEM field. We get them
Mhm.
access to college. How do we retain them here? And then
Yeah,
how do we actually get them to completion? Right?
yeah.
What are the nuances of what it takes for that to happen? And what we
Mm.
know is that there has to be a support system. One of the things that has been very impactful to young minorities, and in this case specifically African American males, and their ability to complete higher education, is when they feel supported.
Yeah, yeah,
Right? When they feel it.
yeah.
That doesn't mean that like I can have a systemic structure in place and there is actually support structure there, but they have to feel the support, which means they have to have an attachment to that support. And
Mhm.
that support, we call it intrusive mentoring. And what
Mm.
that is like it's not like traditional mentoring where I am attentive to your plight as you go through the academic courses. Intrusive mentoring says, yeah, I'm aware of that, but I'm also aware that you're sending money home to your mother. I'm
Mhm.
also aware that you may be hanging out with a good group of students on campus that do not necessarily have your best interest. Like, so I'm so involved in those aspects of your life past the content areas that you're here for that they
Mhm.
actually feel the support. And
Mhm.
I have my own personal goal is to produce 100 doctors in the
Mm.
field of psychology. And what I mean by that is like I want to make sure that I have a hands-on role in producing more doctors of color.
Yeah.
And so right now I'm up to about 35, which is pretty cool.
That
In
is
some
nice.
shape,
That's
form, or
good.
fashion, I've
Yeah.
mentored them, and to get them there.
Yeah.
But all of them say they like at least half of them. I'll say that they said, "Well, Dr. Webb, like even I wasn't even going to attempt this track until I
Mhm.
saw you and you said I could do it."
Mm.
And the reason why that narrative is so powerful, Rodney, is because like research shows also that most people get into leadership or influential roles not
Mhm.
because they wanted to, but
Right.
because someone else looked at them and said, "Hey, I think you'd be pretty good at that."
Right.
And so I'm making my own personal mission, especially because I teach graduate school primarily as a co-faculty. So my students are either master's or doctoral level students. But I
Mhm.
always keep one undergrad course. And I do that because that's where I actually walk up to students. I say, you know what? You look pretty good with a master's on. You have a
Mhm.
mind that can do that. And
Mhm.
they'll say, well, Dr. Webb, man, I never really thought about that. And I tell them, I say, hey, well, just drop by my master's class.
Mhm.
Drop by this evening and come in. They're like, you gonna let me come in a master's class? And I'm like, yeah. You need to see me teaching it, and you need to see other students that look like you in it, and then you need to see yourself being able to comprehend what they're doing on that level already.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
almost always when they do that, it does away with the fear that they had about graduate school.
Mm.
And they
Mm.
said, "Well, Dr. Webb, you don't look like the traditional professor, or yeah, I get all of that." And that is the thing, because when they can see it, when they can touch it, when they can have a conversation with it, then that is the thing that allows it to become real for them. And
Yeah.
that is a piece that I got from my mom when I was 10 years old. I come from very humble beginnings, and my mom maxed out her credit cards to take us on a trip to Australia for 3 weeks.
Oh wow.
And one of the reasons when we got to Australia, one of the reasons why she did that is she told me, because we definitely couldn't afford it. She didn't have that kind of income. And yes, it was a dysfunctional way of making it happen, but she did. But she told me, she said, I needed you to know that this side of the world actually existed. And the only way to do
Mhm.
that was for your feet to touch this ground.
Mm.
Because she needed me to know that the world was at my feet. And
Yeah.
so I take that same ideology and premise into this thing. And so like it's really big, like for them to see representation in this space.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that is so powerful, man. That story, I can definitely see how you are doing the same thing that your mom did to you, that you're doing with your grad students, that you're doing with
Yeah,
your undergrad students, and showing them that other side of the world and see
absolutely.
themselves in that. So, man, that is so amazing, and definitely congrats with that, man. I also want to ask you, okay, so what can we do as far as helping black males, young and old, to 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 see more images of themselves? We know you have your organizations, but what can we do actively to make sure that they're seeing themselves in a positive light?
One of the things that I tell black males, 'cause I get that question quite a bit when we go out and we're having these conversations. Um, do not underestimate the power of an honest conversation or discussion.
Mhm.
And I get old guys who or wise guys. That's what we'll call them, right? The wiser guys.
Yeah.
They say all the time, like, man, I try to talk to these young cats and they don't want to listen. And I tell them, I say that's because you're talking to them.
Hmm.
A lot of times, like, they want to have a conversation where they feel heard, and we have to really tend to that need. And it's not in all men, but it's in quite a few that I've encountered. Like, we want to fix it, we
Hmm.
want to solve it. And so
Hmm.
when we are in that disposition and we're in the conversation with our youth, like, we're trying to fix them, but you have to recognize that the nuance of trying to fix something comes along with the judgment that it is broken or that it's not up to par. And
Mm.
it's that energy that a lot of the youth, they don't want to feel that because they feel it in a lot of places.
Yeah.
And so, we do a couple of things when we have our workshop on how you just have an honest and open, neutral conversation
Hmm.
and allow that energy of your non-judgment, but your observation, because you're allowed to do that. Allowing that energy to insert itself into the discussion, a lot of times it humbles the interaction, and it
Hmm.
allows youth not to come to it with their defender. Their defender is either trying to establish value or maintain the value that it thinks it has.
Yeah.
And so then, as long as we stay away from that dynamic in the conversation, we don't have to deal with the disproportionate power play.
Hmm.
And so I tell people all the time, like, well, what can you do? I'm like, man, just sit down and have an honest conversation.
Yeah.
Listen to the rationale, right? Because part of the issue is when they think that they only have one option.
Hmm.
And generally, when we talk to them and we create a level of awareness and insight, we're able to help them see, like, yo, yeah, that was one option, but you literally had 10 more out there that you could have chose from. You just didn't see them.
Hmm.
So now, you know what I mean? Like, because people, it's very rarely do I encounter somebody who's not trying to make the best decision they know how to make.
Right.
The problem is when they don't see the other options, right? So that just because that was the best decision they could make, that does not make it the best decision.
Right.
And so, like, having honest conversations, I would say that's where you should start.
Okay. Okay. That's some great advice. I wanted one of the things that I definitely want to do more of is talk to younger black men about their experiences, because just like you said, the older, wiser
Yeah,
uh, black men seem to have some type of disconnect, sometimes. And you can also actually see it in music. And
yeah,
I wanted to
yeah,
get your opinion and your thoughts about how this music now versus back in what 90s or whatever, how that actually comes into play of the black male psyche. If you have, I know that's probably we could spend about an hour on that,
right.
but
Exactly. I classify some of the music as mindless music. And I don't
Mhm.
necessarily mean that in a derogatory way. I just mean, like, it's not geared towards the mental exercise. I
Mhm.
definitely do not believe in censorship. And I understand, because I have friends who are in the industry, like, the importance of expressing and being creative. Like, I understand creativity,
Yeah.
right? And I understand the energy that people put in creativity to express themselves. But what we know is that there has been a purposeful shift in mindless music,
Mhm.
because during my era coming up, when hip hop was still working to solidify itself, or for that concrete of hip hop to cure, we
Yeah.
had the movement of Public Enemy and Poor Righteous Teachers. And so there was a level of consciousness that was in the music. Even when you
Right.
went to NWA and those individuals, there still was a level of consciousness
Yeah.
about social advocacy and things of that nature that was driving the culture forward. And I think that there are entities that saw that as problematic.
Mm-hmm.
So what we see now, though, is that when we remove the guidance from understanding, like you have to be able to critically think, and more specifically, be able to critically think in critical moments. And when we
Mm-hmm.
remove the guidance and the wiser people from the conversation, that youth are left to come up with it for themselves without the experiences. And
Mm.
so, we need to have those intergenerational dialogues. Why? Because the wisdom needs to meet the energy. I tell people all the time, you're not going to find a more vibrant cell of energy than in our youth, but
Yeah.
they don't have the wisdom. And
Yeah.
our oldest, our wise guys, they have the wisdom, but they don't have the energy. So we have
Mm-hmm.
to find a way to blend the two in order to create a more conscious movement. And that's not to say that there are artists out there that are doing that, but we do know that there are artists out there who are specifically making music that is detrimental to the human beingness that resides
Mm-hmm.
in us. And
Mm-hmm.
in that regard, I tell people all the time that becomes the fork in the road, or the devil buying somebody's soul so they could play the fiddle real well. Like, that story
Right.
is still alive. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Right.
It just has a different iteration, but it is the same story.
Man, Dr. Webb, you took me to class today. I learned something, sir. I wanted to say I appreciate that. Man, this is really good. Can you tell the listeners if you got any projects that you're working on, anything that you want to promote right now?
Yeah, absolutely. In June, the book will be out. It is Centered Person, a guide to increasing your awareness. You can follow us on Rebrand the Black Man across social media, RebrandTheBlackMan.com. You can follow us as Centered Person across social media, as well as CenteredPerson.com. But that book is it's just a guide on how we increase our awareness so that we start to make better decisions in our own best interest, and that actually impact the collective in a positive way. And it's kind of hinged on my own experiences, but also the insight that I've been able to use as I've talked to many CEOs across the globe, to be honest, and people who have performed at high levels across in their profession. So I just wanted to take some nuggets out of those spaces and put it in a book, and allow people to kind of just chew on that for themselves and get the nutrients that they feel they need.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And before we go too, we can't leave without talking about how there is history that was made at Tennessee State with the Grammy.
Absolutely.
And that
Absolutely.
is amazing. An HBCU making history with getting a Grammy. How's everybody there? Is everybody excited about that?
And we are bubbling over with joy. Professor Jenkins over there, one of the band directors, is my guy. We've done some stuff
Yeah.
with young men on campus, and this was one of his projects. He's like, yo, it's for us to have the storied history that we have here at Tennessee State University,
Hmm.
have produced some prominent people across the globe. He's like, and for our band to be well known since its inception here at Tennessee State University. He's like, we have to find a way to stamp this greatness. And he went on a flat out, all out drive to make this happen. So kudos to him, and kudos to the music and band department for pulling that off. And they were able to pull in Dallas Austin and some other major producers who are in the field, and actually capture a moment of our greatness. And I want to be clear about that. They were able to catch a moment of our greatness. They didn't,
Right.
like, because we've been great for a while, they were able to capture that and put it down. And when you, like, that is the reason why these ideas around the Grammy have popped up, because they captured that greatness, not because they created it. But kudos to them for wanting to, attempt to bottle it up. And they definitely are doing the things to keep it going. So yeah, I celebrate them.
Also, man. Well, sir, Dr. Thurman E. Webb, thank you, sir, for being on the Black Male Archives podcast, where we capture, curate, and promote positive stories about Black men, which you are one of. Thank you again, sir. We got to follow up with you. Have a ton of more questions. I wanted to
Yeah.
keep it short and simple because I didn't want to go 2 hours in. So,
No worries. I appreciate you having me, man. And like movements like yours, they compliment and support what Rebrand the Black Man is all about. Also, I tell people all the time, we are not in competition. We are here to highlight every other entity that is pushing the collective forward. So when I see that, I generally tell people, and I will tell you, thank you for keeping up and holding up the brand. So yeah, man, kudos to you, man, and blessings to you.
I appreciate it, man. And same to you, man. And again, thank you for being on the podcast, and you have a good night. We'll follow up with you later.
All right.
All right.